dear parishioners and parents and other people of goodwill, I'd like to speak to you about the fourth Sunday of Lent this weekend. The situation is that in the first reading, there was the choice of David. He's an unlikely choice to be the new king and to be anointed by Samuel, but God sees differently from what, as they say, man sees. And he's the choice. It reminds me at the end of the Gospel, we have another example of God's choice, one which confuses the religious leaders of the day. The blind beggar becomes a sort of a theologian. John's Gospels, the writer, has a beautifully crafted story and tells how a blind man comes to see the light in Jesus, both physically and spiritually. When Jesus' disciples first see the blind man, they presume his affliction is a result of sin, as they thought it might be, the sin of his parents or his sin while he was blind. But Jesus sees in the blind man something else. Strangely, this roadside beggar, who's been blind begging for years, who has always inhabited a world of darkness, will be the one to display the work of God and point to who Jesus really is. When Jesus heals the blind man, he returns home a new man. His surprised neighbours check their memory, and some refuse to believe their eyes. They are unwilling to let this new event interfere with their past memories in spite of the man's process. Here, I am the man born blind. He doesn't claim any special knowledge of the one who cured him, but he identifies him simply as that man called Jesus. The Pharisees then have a sort of seminar and are doubtful, given who Jesus is, how he could produce such a sign of curing a blind man. Unlike the healed man, the Pharisees are sure who Jesus is, so they think. But as they grow more blind, the former blind man grows in insight and now identifies Jesus as a prophet. This is not a welcome development for them, and the man's parents are hauled in as prospective allies in their case against Jesus. But they're not stupid, so they state their son is old enough to speak for himself, and speak for himself he does. He refuses to deny his own experience. I only know that I was born blind, now I can see. He soon realises he'll be listened to only when his testimony confirms the prejudice of his interrogators. But rather than frighten him, the knowledge frees him to develop his evaluation of Jesus as a man of God. He does this so well that he annoys his listeners, who refuse to be enlightened by the likes of this, what they think is a simpleton, but he's no simpleton. They drive him away, but Jesus seeks out this budding theologian and reveals himself to him, the blind man. Now, the rejected man is the only one in the community who sees Jesus as the Son of Man, something more than just a man. In conclusion, prisoners and parents or people of goodwill, both the story of the blind man and the story of David speak to us of God's choices. Because God sees the heart, he chooses differently from the way that we do. Both David and the blind man are remembered and celebrated by the Christian community because they point themselves to the reality of the divine. We honour David as the one who points ultimately to the Son of David, Jesus Christ. As Jesus is of the line of David, as we hear all the time through the scriptures. And likewise, we recall the man born blind as the one who points to the Son of Man, the light of the world, Jesus Christ, our Saviour.